Galactic Council erased minutes after they crossed the line with Earth. Sci-Fi HFY stories. 1. The vast Great Hall of Nexus Prime loomed above them all, a colossal monument where species from across the galaxy had assembled for millennia. Today, the fates of countless worlds were on the line, and the focus was on Earth. Captain Sarah Chen stood alone on the small platform, the only representative of humanity. Her military uniform was neat, a contrast to the hostile atmosphere that surrounded her. The representatives of 47 alien species, some with scales, some with tentacles, others made entirely of energy, watched her intently. Their eyes held one common emotion, disdain. At the highest point in the hall, the High Arbiter Veltharax descended in his ethereal crystal form. His voice, as sharp as his presence, reverberated throughout the hall. Humanity, you have existed among us for a century. In that time, you have shown nothing but chaos. Your wars, your hunger for resources, your uncontrolled expansion, all of it marks you as a threat to the galaxy. You must be contained. Sarah stood firm, her silence making the room grow heavier with each passing second. She was instructed to listen, to remain diplomatic, but she could feel the weight of their judgment in every corner of the hall. The High Arbiter continued, detailing demands that made her insides churn. The ultimatum was clear: surrender all military forces, abandon humanity's colonies, and submit to genetic recalibration to eradicate what they considered humanity's flaws. Sarah's heart raced as she processed the meaning of those words. They wanted to reshape human nature itself. But when she dared to ask what this genetic recalibration truly entailed, the response was even more chilling. Your flaws, your aggression, your unpredictability, must be removed. Only then will you be safe, Veltharax explained, his tone as cold as the crystal body he inhabited. Sarah's mind raced as she realized the gravity of their demands. What would she do next? Would humanity survive this? Veltharax's threats echoed in Sarah's mind as she processed the implications for Earth. He spoke of their demands, of humanity's supposed flaws that had to be eradicated for peace to be restored. She didn't respond immediately. Every word, every sentence from the High Arbiter dripped with the belief that humans were a disease, a mistake of the cosmos that needed to be eradicated or tamed. The holographic image of Earth and its colonies flickered above the table, illustrating what humanity would lose under the Council's demands. As Veltharax continued, Sarah could feel the sharp gaze of the representatives on her, their hostility palpable. They had made their decision. Humanity's fate was sealed, unless she could do something unthinkable. When Sarah asked, "What if we refuse?" the room froze. Veltharax's laughter echoed like shattering glass. Refusal will result in your annihilation. Every ship, every colony will be destroyed. You will be wiped from existence, like so many other species before you. As the High Arbiter's words sank in, Sarah's thoughts wandered back to Earth. The billions of lives hanging in the balance. Her family. Her loved ones. It was too much to bear. She stared at the representatives, no longer afraid but filled with a deep, resolute determination. With the fate of humanity on the line, Sarah knew she had no choice but to return to Earth. But what could she possibly say to them? How could she explain this impossible situation? Sarah returned to her shuttle, the weight of the Council's ultimatum still pressing heavily on her shoulders. As she made her way back to Earth, her mind raced. The Council was adamant, but something deep within her refused to believe that humanity would bend under their demands. Her thoughts flickered to the countless moments of human resilience throughout history. The ice ages, the plagues, wars, and near-extinction events, they had always overcome. Could they overcome this too? Once on Earth, Sarah's message was brief but clear: Prometheus. It was a single word that would ignite a fire in the hearts of humanity, a call to arms. It wasn't just a response to the Galactic Council's threats, it was a declaration that humanity was far more than what the Council had assumed. Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb, now receiving Sarah's transmission, understood instantly. For decades, he had worked to keep peace, to maintain diplomacy, but now the reality was undeniable. The galaxy did not want humanity to exist peacefully. They wanted them dead. It was time to take action. He activated Protocol Prometheus, signaling the beginning of humanity's defense. As humanity prepared to make their stand, the Council remained unaware of what was coming. What was once a simple ultimatum had now ignited a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The news of Kepler 442b's destruction hit Earth like a shockwave. Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb stared at the report in disbelief, his heart sinking as he read the words again. Kepler 442b, humanity's first successful colony beyond the solar system, had been obliterated. The peaceful towns, the fields where crops grew faster than on Earth, the families who had moved there to build new lives, all gone in a blink. The devastation wasn't just an attack. It was a statement. The Galactic Council had executed their demonstration of power to break humanity's will. As Webb stood in the command center, the full extent of the Council's cruelty was clear. The Council had killed 2.3 million civilians, farmers, children. They believed this would break humanity, force them to bend the knee. But instead, they had unleashed something far darker. "Get me Captain Chen," Webb ordered. He needed to hear from the officer leading the response. Captain Sarah Chen, aboard the UES Retribution, had already received the message. She had seen the tragedy firsthand, and she knew what had to be done. On the view screen, Sarah's face appeared, her eyes hard and filled with rage. "I just received the report." "What are your orders, Admiral?" she asked, voice steady but betraying a deep fury. "We strike back. No negotiations, no mercy. Activate Omega Protocol. We make them pay for what they did to our people." With a single order, humanity had crossed the point of no return. The galaxy had underestimated them. Now, they would face humanity's wrath. What would come next could change everything. As the order for Protocol Prometheus was activated, every fleet in human space moved to war stations. The Black Fleet, ships that officially did not exist, powered up. These were humanity's hidden forces, built in secret on moons and asteroids, armed with forbidden technology. Each ship, crewed by soldiers who volunteered to fight in a war they hoped would never come, was ready for the unimaginable. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the fleet assembled behind her. This was humanity's moment of reckoning. Each vessel that joined the Armada was a symbol of defiance, a sign that humanity would never be extinguished without a fight. The Retribution led the charge, its engines thrumming with the anticipation of battle. Behind it came the destroyers, carriers, and cruisers, each ship packed with humanity's finest fighters, their mission clear, to strike at the heart of the Galactic Council. "This is it," Sarah whispered to herself. "The galaxy will know what happens when you push humanity too far." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system, the heart of the Council's domain. In the distance, the massive world of Nexus Prime loomed, and its defenses began to stir. As humanity prepared for battle, the Council was caught completely off guard. They had never expected such a bold move. Would they be able to withstand the fury of humanity? The countdown to the largest military operation in human history had begun. On Nexus Prime, alarms sounded as the human fleet entered the system. The Galactic Council, secure in their power for millennia, now faced a threat they had never imagined. The fleet, which had appeared to be a collection of primitive ships, now revealed its full scale. Hundreds of vessels, more than the Council had believed possible, were moving toward their home world. In the heart of the Council's command center, Veltharax, the High Arbiter, watched the incoming human ships with disbelief. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his crystal form pulsing erratically. "We must have miscalculated their capabilities." The defense fleets, which had once seemed invincible, now scrambled to respond. Thousands of ships, their weapons charged and shields raised, began to move into position, trying to form a defensive perimeter around Nexus Prime. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had underestimated their capability to fight. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Chen surveyed the situation, her eyes narrowing. "We've waited long enough," she said. "Prepare the harvesters." The harvesters were humanity's secret weapon, small, deadly pods capable of infiltrating enemy ship systems and disabling them in seconds. They were humanity's first strike. And the Council had no idea they were coming. As the harvesters were deployed, the Council's fleet began to falter. What was once a symbol of galactic might was now becoming a target. Would the harvesters be enough to bring down the mighty Galactic Council, or was this only the beginning of humanity's war? The harvesters were launched from every human ship, their small forms cutting through the darkness of space like deadly insects. Thousands of them, each carrying a purpose, to disable the advanced alien ships of the Galactic Council. They were designed to slip past shields, to enter the heart of the enemy vessels, and shut them down from within. The first wave of harvesters hit with deadly precision. Council ships, which had once been untouchable, began to go dark one by one. Shields failed. Power systems went down. Weapons systems powered off. Life support systems turned off, and entire fleets of ships became lifeless hulks drifting in space. "What are those things?" Veltharax screamed. "Why can't we stop them?" No one could answer. The harvesters were too small, too numerous, too fast. The Council fleet, which had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, was being dismantled by humanity's secret weapon, something they had never prepared for. On the Retribution, Sarah stood at the command center, watching the chaos unfold. She felt no joy, no satisfaction. There was only cold determination. They were not here for revenge. They were here to survive. "Move forward," she ordered. "Target Nexus Prime." The harvesters had done their job, but the ultimate target still loomed, Nexus Prime. Humanity was closing in. Would the Council's home world fall, or could they mount a final defense? As the remaining human ships advanced, the Council's outer defense fleets were now a collection of derelict ships, drifting and helpless. The true battle had yet to begin. Nexus Prime, the beating heart of the Galactic Council, awaited. It had defenses, massive, planet-wide defenses, but they had never prepared for humanity's weaponry. On the Retribution, Sarah watched as her fleet drew closer to the planet. Every officer, every crew member, was focused. The final phase of the mission was upon them. "Captain," the tactical officer reported, "we've detected movement, 3,000 ships inbound. They're coming from the inner system, trying to form a defensive line around Nexus Prime." Sarah nodded, her face unreadable. "All carriers, launch fighters. Destroyer groups, intercept. Black Fleet, hold position." The human fleet moved in perfect unison, a well-oiled machine, trained for this very moment. The Council's ships, once invincible, now faced humanity's wrath in full force. The first wave of human fighters engaged the enemy fleet, their weapons lighting up the dark expanse of space. The Black Fleet stood ready, waiting for the final order. As the final battle loomed, Sarah knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Could humanity truly defeat the mighty Galactic Council, or would they fall, just as so many had before? The final battle began in earnest as humanity's forces clashed with the remaining defenders of Nexus Prime. The space around the planet was filled with chaos, bright flashes of laser fire, the roar of engines, and the hiss of destroyed ships collapsing into nothingness. The Council's fleet, despite its overwhelming numbers, was beginning to crumble. Humanity's strategy was simple but effective, surgical strikes and overwhelming force. The harvesters had dismantled the Council's outer fleet, and now the main assault force was moving in. Captain Sarah Chen stood firm on the bridge of the Retribution, her eyes scanning the tactical display. The enemy's defense line was breaking apart. Ships that had once been symbols of power were now helpless, drifting in space, their systems fried by the harvesters. "Second wave inbound," reported the tactical officer. "They're retreating." "It's working, Captain." Sarah's mind raced as she looked at the galaxy's most powerful fleet crumbling before her eyes. This was what humanity was capable of when it had nothing left to lose. There were no rules here. No treaties. No mercy. Just survival. The remaining council ships were quickly being overwhelmed. They had underestimated humanity, but more than that, they had miscalculated the fury that would come when humans were pushed too far. All ships, advance, Sarah ordered. Target Nexus Prime. The final phase of humanity's mission was set in motion. The final battle was almost over. Nexus Prime, the last bastion of the Council, was within humanity's reach. Would the Galactic Council survive, or had they already lost? The end of this war was at hand, but what would humanity's future look like afterward? The Council's inner defense fleet, now severely crippled, was retreating, their once mighty ships fleeing from the advancing human forces. The streets of Nexus Prime were silent, as alien officials scrambled to prepare for the inevitable. And then, something unexpected happened. Veltharax, the High Arbiter, made contact. Captain Chen, his voice came through over the communication channel, now shaking with uncertainty. This has gone far enough. We can negotiate. We can find a peaceful solution. The Council is prepared to offer reparations. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. She had expected this moment, but it didn't feel victorious. It didn't feel like the end of a war. It felt like a betrayal of everything they had fought for. You murdered our children, Sarah said coldly, interrupting the High Arbiter. You killed millions to send us a message, and now you want to negotiate? Veltharax stammered, his crystalline form flickering with distress. But we can still. You think you can offer us reparations after what you've done? Sarah's voice was steady but laced with contempt. You took everything from us. Our families. Our future. There is nothing left to discuss. The transmission flickered, and for the first time, the arrogance in Veltharax's voice was gone. Then what do you want? He asked, his voice almost pleading. Sarah's eyes burned with resolve. What I want is for every species in the galaxy to understand one thing. Humanity is not to be underestimated. We are not a threat to you unless you give us reason to be. If you had left us alone, we would have built a future together. But now, it's too late. There is no negotiation. The Council's home world was surrounded. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was crumbling under the weight of humanity's retaliation. The galaxy was beginning to realize the consequences of their actions. Would the Galactic Council learn from their mistakes, or was humanity's lesson going to be too much for them to handle? The situation on Nexus Prime was dire for the Council. Their fleet had been decimated. Their home world was surrounded by humanity's most powerful forces. But even as the remaining Council ships continued to flee, there was one more task that Sarah had set in motion, the final strike that would end the Council's reign of terror. We are ready, the weapons officer said, his voice grave. Conscience is locked on target. The Council's leadership is in our sights. Sarah took a deep breath. The conscience weapon was humanity's ultimate tool, a weapon capable of delivering a precise, lethal strike across the galaxy. It had been designed with one purpose, to eliminate the Council's leadership, the architects of humanity's near extinction. It was time for the lesson to be delivered. Fire, Sarah ordered. The weapon fired in a burst of brilliant light. The beam split into thousands of smaller pulses, each one targeting a specific person, from politicians in their offices to military commanders on their ships. In mere seconds, the Council's leadership was erased. On Nexus Prime, Veltharax's form flickered one last time, his face now a mask of terror. He had believed that his species was the pinnacle of life in the galaxy. But humanity had proven him wrong. The Council's leadership was gone, wiped from existence in an instant. But as Sarah watched the stars, she knew that this battle was far from over. Humanity had sent its message, but would the galaxy listen? As the dust settled in the Nexus system, the once thriving hub of the Galactic Council was reduced to silence. The Council was no more. Its leaders had been erased, and its fleets destroyed. The galaxy was now reeling from the consequences of humanity's wrath. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb watched the aftermath unfold. Across human space, messages began pouring in. Some species had already begun to pledge their loyalty to humanity. Others were reaching out, seeking protection from the wrath of the remaining galactic powers. Many were terrified. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking out at the stars. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. "What now?" she asked, almost to herself. The communications officer spoke up, "We're receiving transmissions from every corner of the galaxy. Some are surrendering, others are calling for peace." "Tell them to wait," Sarah replied. "Admiral Webb will address them shortly." The battle had ended, but humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. What would they choose now? Peace or war? And how would the galaxy respond to the true power of humanity? Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb stood before a crowd of millions, broadcasting to the entire galaxy. The time had come for humanity to make its final statement. "My name is Marcus Webb. I am the Fleet Admiral of Earth's United Defense Force. I speak now on behalf of all humanity," he began, his voice steady but carrying a weight that resonated across the stars. "We did not start this war. We came to the stars hoping for friendship. For cooperation. For peace." Webb paused, his eyes burning with conviction. "The Galactic Council gave us an ultimatum. They wanted to erase us. They wanted to make us into something we are not. We refused. And for that, they murdered 2.3 million of our people. They thought it would break us. They thought it would make us fear them." His voice hardened, but they were wrong. He continued, his words a declaration to every species watching: "Humanity's strength is not in our weapons, but in our will to survive. We will not be erased. And we will not be made to kneel." The galaxy was listening. The council was gone, and humanity had made its stand. Would peace reign, or would the galaxy find itself once again facing the fury of humanity? The months following the destruction of the Galactic Council were not easy for humanity. Rebuilding the galaxy would take time. Some species, fearful of humanity's power, fought back, but they quickly learned that humanity did not make idle threats. Others, wiser species, reached out to form alliances, understanding that their best chance for survival was in partnership. Sarah stood on Earth, looking over a memorial built in honor of the 2.3 million lives lost. Her heart ached for them, but she knew the price had been worth it. "We're not done yet," she whispered. "But we've survived." Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would never be underestimated again. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Chen stood in a memorial garden on Earth, the stars above her glittering as they always had. But now, every star, every world, knew what humanity was capable of. The galaxy had learned a painful lesson. The Galactic Council was gone, and humanity had secured its place among the stars. As she turned to leave the garden, Sarah smiled sadly. "The galaxy will never forget us," she said softly. And as the stars blinked overhead, she knew they were right. The galaxy would never forget what humanity had become. The end. Let this message ignite your faith, rekindle your hope, and spur you to stand firm on your journey. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If this story stirred your heart, drop a like, share this video with someone who needs it, and hit that subscribe button to catch more content like this. May God's blessings overflow in your life, and I'll see you soon.